Good morning. Welcome. I'm so excited you're here. You are on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. This is the Coffee Break Show. I'm Vicki Helm. It's brought to you by the Metadime Digital Network. And today we are going to rock your world. I promised you that we were going to have guests that were going to help you during this post-pandemic world and all through this. And today my guest is Dale Thomas Vaughn, and he is going to talk to us. I thank you. I actually want to get to the point where you know who he is, because he is so exciting to me. I've been waiting for this all week. First off, just thank you for being here. I'm so glad you're here, Dale.
Stoked. Let's go.
All right. Yeah. So let's just go have some fun right now. Let me introduce him to you. I just want you to know he is a featured thought leader for healthy masculinity. And he is also in an award-winning new documentary called Nevertheless. And he teaches entrepreneurs how to go from the best kept secret to being the expert in their industry or field, or just actually in the whole world. If you can imagine going online these days, it's kind of a whole world view. And his clients have been seen in hundreds of media outlets, including like the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Oprah Magazine. They've been on CNN and BBC. This guy's the real deal. He knows how to make you an expert and get you into that media realm. And today we are going to be talking about that and a lot more on the Coffee Break Show. Listen, if you're new here, we help people all day long, Monday through Friday, tips, tools, techniques, inspiration, motivation, and those things that help us create thrivability. I'm going to dive right in right now. I see you guys popping on right now. Just want to pop over. Hey, Lisa, nice to see you on. MJ, good morning. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Robin. Nice to see you. Hey, Karen, nice to see you on. All right, I see that growing. I see you on. I'm just going to start the conversation with him. Dale, this is a world where we are fighting for attention. We are fighting to get our message out there. We are fighting to be seen on so many areas, so many places, just to get our message out, because we want to make a difference in the world. But what are the biggest three problems you see in the industry right now about getting your message out?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that people face, especially in the beginning of your business, or if you're kind of like, if you're in that solopreneur or that small team phase, is you're waiting for lightning to strike. You think that at some point your media is going to come, right? That's the prince is going to ride through and save you. And the reality is that's not how media works. Media is there's a system to it, right? And there are gatekeepers, there are curators who take care of the media. Yeah. And so a lot of times I think what people see themselves as is this like, okay, I want media. I'm going to go get media. I'm going to go get PR. I'm going to go get on the news. I'm going to hire a publicist, and that publicist, I'm going to pay them as little as I can to get as much as I can. They're going to do as little as they can to get the payment that you paid them. And they're going to try to get probably, like a handful of things to keep you sort of happy. But the reality that people need to understand, to realize, is that we all live in a media ecosystem right in the middle of it.
Yes, I love that word.
And so when you look around at the media you consume, the media your audience consumes, the people who curate that media are in your ecosystem. So how can you be in relationship with them that's helpful to them, that's helpful to your ecosystem? How can you be part of that ecosystem rather than just, let me go attack it. Let me get a publicist and go attack it. I'm here to help you kind of make your own message be heard.
I love that. I love that. How can you be part of that ecosystem? I've never heard anybody call the media an ecosystem. One of the things that I think is so interesting about what you say is you never realize that you can make your own ecosystem now to become part of that ecosystem. And I want to talk about that a little bit more. How do you do this? What's the process? Let's dive right in and figure that out.
Well, this is something I typically teach over, weeks and weeks and weeks, but I have for a long time taught this at the Small Business Administration in LA. And one of the things I start off with is just understanding your audience. You've really got to get down to who is my audience. And there's some really easy ways to do that. One of the ways that I start with is just can you name your audience's fears, their thoughts, their pains, their worries? What are they worried about every day that you address? What is the thing you provide that they are thinking about every day? If you can start to understand what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're worried about, you can probably start to guess what they're going out and searching for, or what is in their media ecosystem that they're using. So what happens next is, after you understand their fears and their worries, you can go and say, okay, if I were to Google, how do I take care of my mortgage when I am on unemployment? Like, that might be a fear of theirs. Like, they're worried about having enough money in their life. So they go and Google that. What is coming up for them? What sites are they going to? What podcasts are they listening to? What TV shows are they watching to help themselves with that? That gives you your list. You should be targeting the people and places that your people are going to, right? And so from there, you can start to work on your headline. And this is the key that unlocks the door. You have to have a great headline to get into the media. If you have a great story and a terrible headline, no one's going to open the pitch email you send them. No editor is going to look at that, right? If you have a great headline and a terrible story, they will open your email. They will read your headline. They will go, that's a great headline. And they will help you craft your story. You have to get the headline right first.
Wow. So let me ask you something, because, I got to admit, I do copywriting myself, and I have a couple of tools and tricks that I use to get the headline. What kind of headlines do media outlets like? Are they happiness headlines? Are they FOMO headlines? Are they fear-induced headlines? What kind of headlines are the ones that really hook the news person, the newsworthy person?
The first thing I would say is, don't reinvent the wheel. Go to, if you're trying to get into the Atlantic, go to the Atlantic, look at what headlines are out there on the Atlantic today, and just use that as a template.
Beautiful.
Right? Don't pretend you can write better than somebody else who's already gotten published in the Atlantic. So use the headlines in the site you're trying to get on, the podcast you're trying to get in.
Kind of model your headline after the ones that have already been used. So smart.
That's the structure, right? But then you want to deconstruct what you're talking about. Why do people really care about headlines? And there are basically 5 areas of newsworthiness within a headline. So one is timeliness. So if it's obviously something current that you're pitching, that's an important piece of being newsworthy. But you can also think about this as the calendar, right? We organize our stories based on the calendar a lot. So if you think ahead, like, does my product or business fit into the holiday season, springtime? Is there a time of year? Like, I ask my clients to come up, what are the 5 most important times of year for your audience? Because
interesting.
You could craft a headline that fits around an important part of their lives, and it will feel to them like you've read their mind. You've pitched an editor a thing that's ahead of schedule, exactly on time for their audience. That editor is going to go, wow, I'm so thrilled that you gave me something I can publish this, during this little block of time. So timeliness is a big one, right? The second one, so I'll give you an example of that. I used to do a thing around goal setting. I had a whole program around goal setting, and I actually still do, but I pitched this idea of your goal setting during January, right? Everybody's thinking about their resolutions in January. I pitched, your resolutions are going to fail by the 3rd week in January. So what to do next? What's your next thing after the resolutions? And Maria Shriver picked it up. It was 5 reasons why your 6-week goals will be better than your year-long goals. It was on February 3rd. So you can think about, like, how does time influence my story?
Oh God, that's so interesting.
So that's one.
This point that you just made right now, this to me is out of the box thinking. It's out of the box marketing. When you take a look at, that thing where you're like, yes, your goals are going to die, and this is how you can do this. And, Maria Shriver, she does those cute little newspaper posts where she just puts that right up and it goes out. That's very smart. And I like the idea of knowing what magazines your audience are going to go to and being able to look at those magazines and craft and model from there. Now, we don't mean plagiarize and copy. That's not what he's talking about here. Crafting and modeling, it's like getting your attention or getting attention right now. I have one question. Does, public, does like PR Newswire work anymore when you do stories? Do you use it, or is it you're pitching directly to the magazine, etc.? How is that pitch getting to them once you've crafted it?
So the PR Newswire thing works if you are a brand everybody knows and wants to write about. If you are Apple, use PR Newswire. If you are a person selling a thing that no one's ever heard of, then you're basically sending your message out into the void, and you're paying somebody $365 to do it, or whatever it costs now. So it would be better for you to get very specific. What are the 5 to 10 places, outlets where my audience is going to get their information? If you get published on, we were talking about this beforehand, if you're on Ellen, the Ellen show, which would be great for you, right, theoretically, but your audience doesn't watch Ellen, the people who are going to buy your product and business, then you just did something for your ego, which is nice. I mean, it probably feels good, right? You get to say you've been on Ellen, and maybe you become friends with Ellen, and then you have this whole life that spirals out of control and you become famous. That's really possible for you.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that you could do nothing. I've had clients that got on Good Morning America and didn't know how to pitch their product, didn't do a very good job of it, so they didn't actually get anything out of Good Morning America. They've come to me after that, worked with me, gone and gotten very specific media that fit their audience, like Psychology Today. If your people are intellectuals, get in Psychology Today talking about how important your thing is to people's lives. That is a way better hit. So think about it more like, who is in my ecosystem, and how can I talk to the curators in my ecosystem? Because and you
actually have to craft your ecosystem. Right. The craft is, what programs do they watch? What magazines do they watch? What headlines work with them? What shows do they listen to? What podcasts? It's interesting the way you have these narrowed down. It's like you're making your media ecosystem. Ooh, I got to tell you, this would be a great book. I'm telling you right now. And since I have a few books behind my belt, I'm like, ooh, good book right here. So what else can somebody do to create good media? Let's say they are in the Atlantic. Let's go back to that. And they find an article that they can craft that fits their product, that fits their market, that fits everything else. How big an article do you write? Where do you get that article? How do you get it to the Huffington Post, or how do you get it to the Atlantic? Where do you put your submissions? Because I know you can dig in a website and find submissions, and it could get lost in there. Do you have a certain way that you present media in that way?
So there's two things. One is every media you pitch is a little bit different, which is why a good public relations campaign is specific. The more specific, the better you're going to do. So if you're writing to the Atlantic and you want to get in the Atlantic, you need to write something that's going to be exact, like 2,000 words long, or maybe you're pitching the op-ed section, which is only 1,000 words, but you need to know who you're pitching and what they want. This is why it's important to understand kind of where you live in your ecosystem, what people are reading around you. But let's get to the point where you've got 3 different media outlets. They've all got very different lengths and maybe different mediums. Maybe you've got a podcast over here, a video show over here, a TV show over here, and a print media over here. Okay, what you need to do now is get really specific about the key messages in your story. So this is common in the PR communications world. They're going to say, what's your story about? What's the headline of it? What are the 3 things you're going to say? I talk about it in 3 to 5 key messages. So you start out with, what is your topic in a very concise, drilled down elevator pitch sense. Then why is this important to the audience? Make it about your audience and not about you, and the story is going to sing. Then the third thing is, does the thing you're offering really work? Give a great story, a great statistic. Stories with statistics are often really helpful, right? That help people see how this thing is going to help them in their lives, whatever the thing you're offering is. So I'll give you an example. A client of mine, Cuddlist. You've probably heard of cuddle therapy, right? People who...
Yes, actually, I have.
So Cuddlist is a client of mine years ago. So they do their own media now. The owner of that company is an awesome guy, and his name's Adam Lippin. And when he came to me, it was, okay, let's get really drilled down into who are the people who are likely to need this service. Okay, so we understood that there was a lot of people are dealing with loneliness. That was a big issue in our life. It still is, right?
Yep.
We found this great statistic, which was 50% of people in New York City are living alone and never interact with another person outside of being on the subway.
Wow.
So we've got a lot of just built-in loneliness in our lives. So those are the people we want to reach out to. So we started to look into what is we know that cuddle therapy is important because it helps establish some things that we need. Like touch is actually a need, a bodily need. Mm-hmm. Why is that? So we got into the psychology and the neurobiology of oxytocin, the needs we have for like the touch starvation we have in our lives. That story starts to become very interesting. We pitched that to a handful of kind of smaller media to start out with, right? Blogs and stuff that we thought would pick that up. Nice. They did. Then the next level up, we pitched the New York Times, the Washington Post, all those kinds of that level. They picked it up because they had seen it at the level below them. Neat. So then they picked that up, and now Cuddlist is everywhere. It's just been on hundreds of sites since then. It's been in the media in 1,000 ways. The point of that is get really specific about who your audience is, how this thing helps them, and give a really specific either statistic or story that illustrates how valuable it is in their lives.
That is amazing, because we often think, what we're pitched and what we're sold is if you build it, they will come. But the question is, how do you build it correctly? Yeah. So I love the way that you were like, first get it out on these blogs, get this out here. I love the idea of being able to say, these are the magazines that the people who are there. And, for authors, I think this is really important, because you write a book, and especially nonfiction authors, but, even fiction authors, people writing books, they have places where their audience goes to indulge in books that are written in these industries or fantasies. I mean, there's, video game audiences who love sci-fi books and things like that, knowing where those are and being able to offer a blog post to, and I would offer it. I don't think, I should be paid for that if I have access to an audience. How is it that you contact a blog and say, I'd like to offer you a free blog post with et cetera, et cetera? Is there a certain, protocol so that you don't look like you're a sponge, but there is a mutually beneficial kind of venture?
Sure. So I've been an editor at the Good Men Project, which is a gigantic blog, one of the top 100 blogs in the world. We reach the same traffic level, 3 to 4 million people a month. Wow. That's similar to the Oprah.com traffic level, so a pretty significant site. Mm-hmm. And I'm an editor there, and I have been for a long time. I still get pitches every day, dozens of them. Most of them are not specific to us. They don't understand who our audience is. Every now and then, and I'm talking like 1 out of every 100 pitches is specific. That one pitch feels great. It's amazing to have somebody who's understood my audience, who's said, okay, I know what the length of this should be. They're sending me a great pitch, a solid headline, and I can see that they've got some evidence that they can write. If they've got a book out about a thing that's relevant to my audience, of course I want them to write something for my audience. That's great.
Beautiful.
So the question is, again, go look for the sites, then go look for the editors or the curators, so the podcast host or whatever. Most of these places have either submission guidelines.
Yep.
I mean, even the New York Times op-ed has submission guidelines that you can go and Google, right? Mm-hmm. There's a very specific process for each different place. And so if you've taken just the extra 5 minutes to go and find out you can get in the queue with a major site or a major podcast host. You can communicate with Pat Flynn today if you just go
Oh,
to
I
the
love
site
him.
and find, right. It's not that
He's
hard.
such a nice guy. Such a
Right.
nice guy. It isn't hard. You're right. That's
So,
so interesting.
so just have the chutzpah, have the guts to say, I believe in my story, and your story is big enough. And this is the other thing that I think people struggle with at the small level when you're still kind of in that growth phase is my story big enough?
Yes.
Right?
How do you determine that?
Your story's big enough. It is, I promise. If it
Good.
helps even one person, it's big enough. The challenge, I think, is helping you interact with the curator of the media in a way that's meaningful. So I'm all about relationships. People talk about PR. That R
Me
is
too.
relations, right? If you create a good relationship with a host, a curator, an editor, then you're likely to not just appear once, you're likely to appear multiple times on that show or in that piece because they see you're bringing real value to them. Your story, if it's relevant to that audience, you are going to be the right size story for them.
That's beautiful because I know a lot of times the in the media world for me when I launch a book is when I make an article or I make a pitch. It depends. Right now I have a system I use where, do I have a 2-minute spot, or is this an hour interview, or is this a 15-minute spot? What is it? So that I have pitches in various sizes. And I'm wondering, is that true? I mean, is there a way where I know when I write articles, they love when I write articles, because if you're a good article writer and you get a good piece, if you have a really good piece that has really good tips in it for, or a really good unusual perspective that's powerful and life-changing or transformational, those get easily done, and they don't care how big the article is. And I've had newspapers that want like 600 words, or et cetera. When you're going into these places inside a whether it's a podcast, whether it's a newspaper or whatever, do you have systems that say, how do I say this, that create the ecosystem and say, for podcasts, we have this, for newspapers, we have this, for magazines, we have this, for TV, we have this, because a lot of TV, isn't it pretty much quick and in the moment? Like they need an expert right now to talk about this thing that just happened that is very big in the news, and they want to find 2 experts, and you have to be ready like that.
So I try to make things as easy as possible because I know that we're all trying to do 10 things at the same time, and often just doing one thing right can have a better kind of outcome for you. Mm-hmm. So when I talk about key messages, that's the engine of your entire story. If your story is specific enough to your key messages, you as the expert in this thing should be able to expand that or decrease it. But the key messages, if you've thought them through and you've gone, okay, what's my topic? Why is it significant? Does it really work? What kind of client is right for this? What kind of person needs this? How does it work in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps? And what's the call to action if they need more help? If you're very specific about those 5 or 6 steps, then you can expand that to an hour to, I take this course that I teach in PR. I've taught it over 3 days, right? 3 full days, right? I've done 13 full hours of it. But you can condense it down to 15 minutes or less too. Because you understand your story. You're the only one who understands your story.
That's right. You got to know your content.
So yes, your pitches are going to change based on who you're pitching, but the story is going to stay the same.
Yes. I get what you mean. What you mean. That's such an important thing to do, because I do know my content well enough that if I have to shrink it or expand it, I can, just adding in what that time zone is. I love that. Donald Gifford, thanks for being on the show. Timelessness.
Timeliness was the first one I gave you. I'll give you.
Is it current? And number 2.
So timeliness is not just, is it current? It's also part of the calendar, just be clear. Second is significance. How is this significant to your audience? And so when you think about that, it's, okay, think about your audience and what are the 5 most important things they think about every day? And can you pitch something that's really relevant to those important, significant things in their lives? I'll give you an example. A client of mine was a wedding planning consultant, basically. She's a wedding planner, but she consulted hotels, big companies that dealt with weddings as an event. So she was trying to get into Special Events Magazine, brides.com, that kind of. So her pitch became, what you don't know about millennial brides may be costing you business.
Interesting.
So that's significant to everybody on every side of that business, because they care about the costing you business. They care about money. Like, their most important thing is are you saving me? Right. And millennial brides, that's timely because it's going on now, right? Mm-hmm. Most brides right now are millennials, but it's also extremely significant to them. They know that that's a really big part of their pie right now. So super significant. I'll give you another example of that. When I was speaking at this major conference, the International Conference on Masculinities, I was talking about how fraternities can be involved in the prevention of sexual violence. So I pitched my fraternity that I am an alumnus of, and that fraternity has a giant newsletter, 200,000 people reach. I said, hey, I'm going to go to this thing. Do you want to write an article on it? They said, yes, of course, because we care about you. You're an alum. We care about the International Conference of Masculinities. That's high significance. Prominence is the next one. And that topic is super significant to us. We care about how do we prevent sexual violence.
Yeah.
So you start to think about, who's my audience? Yeah. What do they care about? Make my story relevant to that.
Beautiful.
That's the second one. Should I keep going, Vicki?
Yes, keep going. I'm riveted. Number 3, Donald, we're going to number 3 now.
Number 3 is proximity. Proximity is generally about geographical proximity, right? So if you have something that's relevant to your specific city or state, great, pitch that. But I also want you to think about geographical proximity in your regular life. Like, for instance, every one of us goes to a shower or a bathroom every day. That is a physical location in our lives we all share. If you have something to pitch that's relevant to our physical location that we all share, that is a geographical proximity. It seems really simple, right? Like, if you have a product that helps you in the shower, or if you're thinking, I have a product that's about mindfulness, do this while you're in the shower. That is actually a proximity pitch. Okay.
Wow, I like that.
The most people use proximity as you're in the same geographical location. So, for instance, I was at a conference in Austin, speaking about the work I do, and I reached out to all the Austin papers, all the Austin business journals, stuff like that. And so, Austin Business Journal actually picked up a piece about me speaking in town. The pitch was, I'm in town. I'm talking about this thing. I'll be there for 3 days if you want to do an interview. They came out to the conference, they did an interview, they watched the performance I did, and then they wrote a piece about it.
That's the beauty.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4 is prominence. This is if you can get a famous person, a famous concept, a famous brand into your pitch.
Ooh.
Okay, so I'll give you 2 examples. Unfortunately, they're both political, but they're from both sides of the spectrum, so hopefully everyone's served. I had a client who was specifically working with the financial management, but he was working with people who were retiring, and he served people in his community. He's an African-American man. So he was working with people who were retiring from government jobs who needed financial service. So we found, he was my client in 2016. I asked him, who's a famous person who fits that description? So he built his entire pitch around what Barack Obama can do to have a happy retirement.
Oh.
Right? So everybody who's a government worker, who is African-American, retiring, super relevant to them, right?
Yep.
They picked up on all the places that he needed it picked up. Another group came in and was talking about how the political division that's in our lives, everybody's lives right now, is affecting marriages. So they worked in, is Trump tearing your marriage apart, or is politics, basically? They started working that into their experience, and they got picked up in BuzzFeed.
That's right.
Use the names out there that fit you. The 5th thing is human interest. This is sort of a catch-all. The fifth is human interest is about love stories and survival stories and how-tos and transformation stories. So if you've gone from the caterpillar to the butterfly, if you've gone from little town to big city, if you've slain the giant, if you know, those kinds of stories are human interest stories. And when you think about those, they're often, sometimes they don't fit any of these other categories. By the way, I should say, if you can get multiple of these categories into your pitch, you know, A+, right? That's how you win. But one is good enough usually. So I'll give you a couple examples. One is I pitched a story about running with the bulls, which I did when I was 22. I ran with the bulls. I ran with death. I ran towards life. This got picked up in Huffington Post. There's nothing significant about it, really. There's nothing prominent about it. You could say running with the bulls maybe is a prominent idea, but there's nothing timely about it. You know, there's nothing proximity about it. It was Huffington Post. It was a human interest story that people were interested in, right? The professional cuddling, the cuddlist group, we came out with several that were related to significance, but this one that got picked up in the New York Times was Pillow Talk with a Professional Cuddler.
Ooh, I love that. Oh God, that's clever.
Pillow Talk, right?
I mean, come on, that's such a great hook.
Yeah. So Pillow Talk is human interest. There's nothing, again, none of the other categories fit.
Yeah.
Professional cuddling is, I like the idea of cuddling. I know that word. What is professional cuddling? Now you've piqued my interest.
Yeah.
So this is how you can kind of use those headlines. If you get your headline right, if it's interesting, if it's got one of those 5 things in it, or 2 of them, then you're likely to get read. That's the first hurdle you have to get past.
You have to consume the content. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. We live in a giant media swarm right now, right?
There's
billions of blogs every day that come out and try to attract your attention. And every editor, every curator, they're all trying to find a way to punch through that haze and have a headline that attracts people. Right. So if you help them with a great headline, the editor is going to suddenly think of you as their savior, their little best friend. They're going to come back to you after you get that first one published, and they're going to want you to help them with their next one. Like, how could you, if you've killed that headline, if you just crushed it, you're going to be published. That's it. That's
really where I spend most of my time. And also like in a book, on the title of the book. Oh my gosh, I obsess over the title of the book. In fact, it gets to the point where if I'm having conversations with people, like I have, even the people in the audience here, or the people around there, I listen, and I'm like, ooh, that's a good book title. Ooh, what a great headline. Ooh, because, you know, it comes out in conversation or whatever else, and they're just talking to you, and they could throw out these awesome hooks, and I write them down because I can use them later.
I just want to say that's exactly what you should be doing. Verbatim. When people say things out loud that hit you, write them down verbatim, because those things end up being the best headlines.
I'm constantly, my team, when we talk, if we have a meeting, I'm like, ooh, that's such a great title. But you're right about having to write in a way that pulls people through the article, and the making it about them, and really making it so that you're read. It's great to have a hooky thing, but let me ask you something. Do you know how, I don't know if this is a piece of statistics that you know or don't know, or even if it's real, but do you know how they say when somebody goes to a website and they have 7 seconds before somebody goes off that website to the next website looking for that hook that feels right to them? In an article, do you have like, you know, a 7 seconds worth of headline and then the first couple of sentences, and that's going to determine whether they're going to finish it or not? Or do you have bullet points that are kind of throughout how do you get them to consume the article once they've been, hooked by the headline?
Yeah, again, I think I've constructed a key message template that really helps people pull the eye down, pull people through. Really, once you've got them at the headline, they're pretty much just like hoping that the first 2 lines match. So if you've got them with a great headline, and then the next couple of lines say, yes, I understand this is who you are, and this is why you need this, they're going to keep reading. They're going to read to the bottom.
Good.
the problem people come across is trying to attract attention and then not having this sort of system of messages below it that fit the headline. So don't just craft a headline to attract people. Craft the headline that fits your story and fits your audience. That's the hard part of this, right? Is like bridging the gap between your story and the audience. I don't think that, like, yes, of course, we're strapped. There's a baby crying in the other room or somebody honking at you. Like, you've definitely got audience attrition going on during the reading, but people will bookmark you and come back if the headline fits you.
Brilliant. Question.
Yeah.
Top 3 forms of media you would use for somebody just starting. Like,
Sure.
Hi, I'm just starting. I've not done this before. Is it YouTube? Is it what 3 pieces of media would you suggest?
Well, first, I would think about, I ask people to do this in 2 ways. One is think about your ideal audience and what format they like to take in information. Because maybe your group of people really love podcasts. Maybe you have a product for truckers. Like, you're looking at podcasts, right? Visual, auditory, and print are kind of the 3 buckets. Right? So are you going to do video in this way, like on the web, or are you going to do video on TV? Are you going to do Instagram and TikTok? Like, are you going to do video that way? Are you going to do auditory, so radio and podcast? I will say that there are so many radio stations out there that could use a good host or good guest today. Like today, you could email 100 radio stations and probably 10 of them would pick you up. Like, radio really needs people right now. The third is print. So print is newspapers, print is magazines, print is blogs. So that's all in mine now. But I would also just say, like, when you think about what your audience is taking in, also think about where you feel comfortable presenting. So if you really love talking, if talking is where you just shine, then stick to podcasts and video where you get to do that. Give yourself long form to get into the meat. If you love telling stories, use that podcast medium. If you want to stay on the web in particular because you want to control your brand like you have done, I think what you're doing is brilliant, right? Like, own your space.
That's right.
The leader in your space. Invite people you want to talk to on your space. You're the curator, right? Like,
that's right.
So do that. But if you're like, no, I don't really like, I would rather write. I'm an introvert. I want to write and I want to send it out into the world and let somebody else deal with it. That's great. Stay in print. Like, but pick the thing that fits your audience first and then you next. Does that feel right?
Yeah, I love this that you're talking about, because in every mode that I use, now I've done blog, I've done podcast, I do it all. I love every form of media, but what it is that I want to create is connection. Yeah. I want to talk about the things that create connection with people and connection with my audience. And I want to take them on journeys in conversations. I want to take them deep in so they can feel how they can, have less stress. I know right now, this is very unusual, but I've had everybody saying the same thing. I can't ask a question. I'm taking really good notes. And I'm noticing today as I'm going down, everybody's saying, I'm here, but I'm watching the replay again. Now, the reason this is significant for me is because it hasn't happened before. I usually get, Donnie, so far, is the only guy. Donald Gifford was the only guy who asked a question today. Everybody else is literally just taking notes. I'm doing the replay. I'm going to watch the replay. And I'm looking at this going, ooh, I've hit a nerve. And one of the things that I'm enjoying about this is that the way, Dale, that you speak about PR isn't mindy. It's very heartfelt. Oh. And I think the passion of what you do, and you've been giving so generously, the passion for what you do is coming out in the conversation. So immediately I just want to shut up and let that person go. But I started off with one media that I got good at, and I literally practiced every day, sometimes 8 hours a day at writing for over, 18, almost 20 years now, writing, because I think the power of the pen is really important, and learning to get good at doing podcasts and learning to get good at your craft of, it's not to me PR, but it is PR. It's a type of marketing, but it's a type of connecting.
That's
And
right.
I think connecting with the audience in whatever way you do, whether the hook, the line, the reading, whatever you do, is so important. And I want to ask you, it's like, how is it that I'm self-taught? I didn't go to college. I didn't to get a PR degree or a degree in journalism.
Mhm.
I'm very self-taught, and I think you can do that right now. So I wonder, in your course or anything else, do you have like maybe where do people go to learn to write headlines or learn to do a great podcast? I know there are books out there, but I mean, in the act of doing it, I mean, I'm pretty much tempered by fire. I go in and I screw up every day, and I just get better until I'm, where I am right now.
Well, I think that's, I learned in school how to do this stuff, and my first teacher was a editor at the Dallas Morning News. She was brutal on our first, we'd come into class with all our pitches and stuff ready to go, and she would just rip them up. And one of the things I learned from her was that the more concise you can be, the more specific you can be, the better, right? And I think that takes time. I think that does take, like you're saying, you have to be a little bit patient and you have to be willing to put some things out there and get feedback. Mm-hmm. But I promise you, if you are looking specifically at one site, this is the one I want to do, and you're paying attention to how their headlines are formatted, and you're using their format, and you're really understanding their audience, and your message is sincere and concise, even if it's not quite right, what's going to happen is the editor is going to know that you tried. You're really close. And I do this a lot. I reply to people and I'm like, this is close. Go work on this. Come back. Right. So I think a lot of what happens is people like my teacher, who was an editor at the Dallas Morning News, are like me now. They've sent out a lot of people like me into the world who do the same thing, who say, listen, you're really close. I get that you're trying. Let's work on your story. I've worked with people on their stories. And I think that's an important thing to know, is like, you're not alone in this. You're not just pitching into a void. You're talking to a person, right? I mean,
yeah.
You and I did this like back and forth before I came on this show. I was like, which thing do you want to talk about? I got 3 things here. And I just pitched you 3 things. Right?
I know. And I was like, well, if we had 4 hours, we'd talk about everything.
But I looked at your audience and I was like, I don't know which one exactly. Is it this one, or is it this one, or is it this one? And you were like, this one. And I'm like, great. But it's a back and forth, right? Like, it's a relationship we're starting here.
That's
and if you think about it like that, it's 2 people connecting. Somebody is curating and editing and producing something that they care about, that their life is built into. They really, really care about their audience. So they're going to protect that like a mother hen, right? Like, they're taking care of their audience. If you come to them with nourishment for their audience, they're going to treat you as part of their family. Like, I have great friends in the media because I have come to them with help. And I have great friends who are writers who've come to me with help, right? Mm-hmm. These are things I want to put forward in the world.
Yes. And that's so beautiful what you've said. There's a couple of things I want to share with you. And one is that ecosystem that he just talked about having people help you. It's not always fun to get feedback. Because sometimes I have this system I use when I write articles and when I write books and when I write blog posts. And I have my team read them because they're seriously honest. And we have the 1 to 10 scale, and they'll be like, this is about a 5. You got to redo it. And the thing is, if you put yourself and surround yourself with people that are an ecosystem that you can fall back on, what do you think of this? Is this the right pitch? What do you have about this? That's so important, that one thing. But you have to be willing to feel the pain sometimes, that you're going to have a knee-jerk reaction, that this feedback, I was like, I did my best work and it's not right yet. You have to be willing to fail forward. And I think sometimes one of the things about the disappointment of something not working that you really put a lot of love into, you have to transcend that. You can feel the pain, but transcend it and just do it again and again and again and again. And this is that failing forward process, because it's not going to happen overnight. That I can tell you for sure. For sure, it's not going to happen overnight. But the first time that something did happen and you're so surprised that that hook worked, and the feeling you get when you get picked up the first time by some piece of media company, you're so excited, and it's so great for that. And I just want to say, as we continue here, see Dale's website to find a few headlines he uses. You can do that.
There's an
Because
enemy
he's
section.
answering our questions we didn't know we had. Thank you, Scott. This is so important. This is what he's doing right now. He knows his subject so well. He knows that you don't know the question you want to ask. This is so important because he's answering our questions we didn't know we had. I love this. Clarity of thought. Dale, you are a great communicator and teacher. Wonderful job at conveying your thoughts, processes, and knowledge base. I love that too. Thank you for this, helping others. You guys, I'm going to keep going because I have a little bit more time, and he's got a lot of stuff to go through. And, this is the right, whatever causes a revolution in your heart. Some of these things, the failing forward. So I think we're on number 5 or 6, or you tell me where we are, and we'll just keep going along because you're doing so awesome.
I think that there's just this, I want to encourage people to submit their stories to the media because there's a handful of reasons, but one of the biggest ones for me is the media, without your story, will run whatever is the big story out there, which means they're going to run the story in the politics, or they're going to run the story in the sports, or they're going to run the story in the business. They're going to have to do the thing that everyone else is doing default. When you offer your media a new story, what you're doing is you're changing the larger media narrative around in our entire world. You're changing it all because your story is dropping in this little ripple that's changing the way we're talking. So if you've ever said to yourself, I am tired of listening to political news, I'm tired of hearing about the murder down the street, if you've ever said to yourself, I'm tired of listening to this kind of thing that doesn't make me feel good, your story could be the thing that editor runs next time.
Wow.
And that's such an important part of it. There's an activism every time you offer your story to the world. There's an opportunity for you to change the world just by sharing what you're doing. And I encourage people who are in that place of like, I have a great thing. I know I'm helpful to people. All my clients love me. My friends, I help all the time. You might be playing a little too small if you're not willing to say, I'm going to just pitch it to the next level up. Just try that next level up. I always work from the top down, right? I start from Good Morning America and work down. But where you can, work forward. And I want to just share the reality is there are around 3 million blog posts written every single day, according to Technorati. 3 million, which means there are 3 million writers or editors who are looking for good content. There are 3.3 billion podcast downloads in 2015. And I imagine that number has gone up. And 1 in 5 Americans listen monthly, according to Pew. What we're talking about here is there's so many people who are looking for stories.
Yeah.
When you drop your story into the ecosystem of your audience, you're creating something. You're building gravity around it. You're going to be surprised how quickly you actually do get something picked up. Mm-hmm. My clients always have like that initial hit. It happens really quickly. They're shocked just because they've put something out there in the world and they're getting something back. Like, wow, it's so amazing. That when you start to structure your business, you go, okay, I've built this level of story with these curators. Push yourself to the next level. What's the next level? Can I pitch CNN with this now? Like, now that I've been in Mind, Body, Green about how yoga influences people's blood flow. I don't know what it is you're using. Could I then talk to CNN and just try? You'd be shocked. You'd be shocked how many people are going to pick up the phone, who are going to answer that email, and who are going to help you.
This is so brilliant. And that point is the stepping out of your comfort zone. I can hear the voice in my head when I first started, and the voice in my head said, you're not good enough. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. Don't listen to that voice. Listen to it. I can promise you that voice is lying to you. But I'm not a writer. I'm not good at writing. I'm not good at don't listen to that voice either. It's that you haven't practiced enough. That's all. And moving out into those, he's already told you the amount of people that are looking for stories, the stories. It's not just news stories and blog post stories and magazine stories. There are thousands and thousands of outlets that are looking for stories. And it's like your story is going to help them. I love the way you used activism. I love the way we talked about moving the media today. I mean, the power of what you just said is that they're going to run the regular stories. They're going to run the regular stories because you haven't sent them your story.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't sent them that one thing. And there's a bit of activism when you sit down and become the story, because all the media outlets are going to start saying, hey, GMA just did a story on, Good Morning America just did a story on, and let's look at what else is there. Or how can we spin this or twist it or put it in our story as well? That was such a powerful statement, because that's like that pedal of, here, I'm going to drop the stone in the water and watch it ripple out as it goes. And what if you are that powerful? What if you are that powerful? I mean, that's how the 4-hour work week got everywhere, isn't it? Because everybody liked that book. So what's the next one? Let's keep going, because this is just going.
Well, I've given you everything to start with, I think, that you need, which is you need to understand your audience, go find the places that they're reading, get the headlines template, start there. Second thing is go out and start to create a headline based on the newsworthy aspects I've laid out in this show. And obviously I go into way deeper detail with this in class, but and then the third thing is understand your key messages, right? Start to block out, what is my thing? Why is it significant? How does it work? What are some statistics and stories that can help support it? Block out your key messages. Then structure a campaign list, a campaign. Like, don't think of it as, I'm going to do this one time. Think of it as a mountain you're going to build up, right? You're going to layer in.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you think about it like that, then it becomes this ongoing thing. And once you've created relationships, those come back around. You don't have to do it like over and over again with the same person, right? Once you've done it, once you've opened a relationship, that becomes available to you. I think the thing that people lack is not this. I mean, the systems and structures are there. I've just laid them out for you, and I can help you with them more deeply if you want. Come to dalethomasvaughn.com and talk to me. But if you're frustrated by seeing people who are less experienced than you getting your headline, there's reason to believe you could pitch your headline to that same media source or the one next to it. So if you see somebody who's not as good as you talking about your thing on Good Morning America, pitch the Today Show. Like, brilliant. Do you know what I mean?
Brilliant. I get it.
So this isn't hocus pocus, right? This isn't magic. That's one of the things I want to make sure everybody sees. There is a system to this.
Yeah.
But it's not the system that most PR people want you to pay them to do your work. And I'm gonna humbly submit that you should not pay other people to do your work in this way. Have somebody do some writing for you, fine, but you should be the one doing the pitch, because you're the one who wants the relationship with the media.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I do have one thing.
Hit me.
What if people want to hire you? What if they want to, this guy's so great and we had this great conversation and I got to work with him. How do they find you? What do you got going? Or what if they want to learn from you?
Yeah, it's real simple. Just email me, Dale@dalethomasvaughn.com.
See that? How easy is that?
I'll tell you a funny story about that.
Here's your website, but put that email in there as well, because it's so simple.
Dale@dalethomasvaughn.com. So the reality, I'll tell you a funny story about this. I went to a conference in Silicon Valley, and this major billionaire founder investor guy that everybody would know was on stage. He was speaking. At the end of his talk, after everyone was wowed with his brilliance, he put one slide up, white background, black text, his email address. He said, if you have any questions, email me. And I was shocked. 500 people in the room, all in Silicon Valley. Surely this guy's going to get inundated with, pitches and offers and whatever else. So I did the greeting line like you do at conferences. You go and shake hands. I went and shook his hand afterward. And I asked him, why did you put your email address up there? That just seems like crazy to me. And he said, because no one's going to email me. It was shocking, but he said, no one's going to email me. Nobody in here is going to get the guts up to send me their pitch or to talk to me.
Wow.
So I did, of course, and we're now we have a relationship, right? Like it's one of those things where, I'm here to help, and it's the same thing.
In fact, what I thought was, if I don't email him soon, I'm going to be like number 300, 400 email on the bottom if I don't do it soon. So I did it, like went up to the motel room and did the email right away. And that's how I got connected to a billionaire.
Yep. That's the way it works.
That's so interesting that you said that. That's so interesting how it's like, take the action, take a risk, make a move, get out of your comfort zone. And if you want to work with Dale, be brave enough to get to that email and say Dale at Dale from thomasvaughn.com, Dale at dalethomasvaughn.com. And I expect a couple of people from my team may even be like, hey, Dale, how you doing? We're reaching out. I want to say your generosity today has, like, I actually, to be honest with you, I'm fighting tears. Like my heart is in my throat because the amount of problems and issues that you solve for people today in this 1 hour, and how this is going to go out to solve the issues and problems that people have today, trying to work with getting their message out to the world, has just helped. I don't know how many activists, because this is going to live on in the way it does. And when you make a difference like this, when you make a true, strong difference and it ripples out in that way, I feel like we're never going to know how important this conversation was. We're never going to know. I just know that it was, and your generosity was absolutely amazing. So listen, if you guys have a question right now, because I know you've been writing feverishly, and if you're listening on iHeartRadio, you're going to want to go to Facebook at the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. Ask your question there. I've got maybe 5 more minutes with him, 5 more minutes. So, it's coming in now, Dale. This was superb. Thank you for so many gold nuggets. Heading right into hashtag replay. Some people are going to listen to this. You got to let me get it up for there so the replay will just start, but the replay will be there. I know this is something that was spectacular. And you know what? We're just scratching the surface. If you work with Dale, we're just scratching the surface right now. This guy is that good. Look at everything he's delivered to you right now, and just imagine how much more he can deliver to you to make your message heard. This is so important. I told you we only bring on some of the best in the industry to speak to everyone at this point. Dale, if you had one last thing you'd like to share with the audience, what would it be?
Just that if you tell your story well, it will be in demand. It's just about telling your story well.
Tell your story well. If you tell your story well, it will be in demand. The story will be in the demand, and thus you will. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been really a pleasure speaking with you and connecting with you as well. You guys, this has been the Coffee Break Show, and Pandora and iHeartRadio and iTunes. Thank you for tuning into the Coffee Break Show today, and we will see you tomorrow. I know we're going to be talking about him tomorrow. I get it. There's going to be buzz. I'm okay with that. And I'll see you guys tomorrow on the Coffee Break Show. Thank you for being here. Mwah! See you guys later.